Greek philosophers had already noted in the 1st century AD that too much luxury exacerbates suffering and lessens the intensity of pleasure. This point of view holds that a person who lives in luxury and never feels uncomfortable eventually loses the capacity to bear hardships and to recognize the greatest joys. The ego is endowed with a power, a creative force, a late conquest of humanity, which we call will, according to Carl Jung. Even the monarchs of the past could not have predicted the pleasures, conveniences, and entertainment that we enjoy in the modern West. But despite all of this luxury, a lot of people experience ongoing stress, anxiety, depression, or physical challenges. This movie will examine the intricate relationship between pleasure and pain, and examine how too much comfort and pleasure are causing mental and physical health problems for modern man. In the modern world, access to conveniences and amenities is practically unrestricted. The physical hardships and everyday obstacles that were a necessary component of the human experience have mostly disappeared as a result of this affluence. Many of us have discovered ways to anesthetize ourselves rather than deal with the inherent challenges of eating or moving about vigorously. We turn to comfort food, booze, technology, and entertainment for solace. Despite its luxury, this way of life leads to a dilemma. We end up with major long-term repercussions if we avoid discomfort and difficulties. Physical and mental health issues, including obesity, anxiety, and depression, are the results of living an overly comfortable life. We can compare current life to the conditions that our hunter-gatherer predecessors suffered for a large portion of human history to see how pleasant and enjoyable our lives have become. Our forefathers traveled great distances almost every day to find food and water. Hunting huge mammals required a lot of energy, and they frequently engaged in endurance hunts, which entailed following and tracking their prey until it passed out from weariness. As Yuval Noah Harari noted, they would chop the animal into pieces after catching it, and then walk kilometers back to camp, carrying big chunks of raw meat. In order to locate food and stay alive, our hunter-gatherer ancestors had to wander around a lot. Long periods of repose were absent. They were kept in a state that we would now consider that of athletes by the daily physical challenges they faced. In pursuit of food, they climbed, ran, and walked, covering kilometers. They fought for their lives every day, which molded their bodies and made their minds more resilient to shocks. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. Along with engaging in rigorous physical exercise, our ancestors also had to deal with mental stress without the reassuring distractions of technology, medicines, processed meals, alcohol, and entertainment. Without central heating, air conditioning, or modern housing, they had to contend with the harshness of nature, and they also had to deal with disease and infection without the aid of modern treatment. Our forebears had a natural tendency to maximize the conveniences and pleasures that were accessible to them because their lives were challenging, frequently inconvenient, and occasionally painful. The survival of our ancestors depended on this impulse. They relaxed and rested whenever they could. And as a result of their quest for solace, their bodies and brains recovered and were able to cope with life's harsh truths. Since they had no idea when their next meal would be, they gorged themselves on rich foods like fatty meat, fruit, or honey when they were available in order to store up energy. Although we inherited this desire for comfort and pleasure from our ancestors, Sebastian Junger stated that it arose in a time of scarcity, whereas we now live in cozy settings that are abundant, as noted by Yuval Noah Harari in his book Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Even while we have no wish to go back to the difficult circumstances that our forebears endured, the modern world poses additional difficulties for us because our need for comfort and enjoyment did not develop with an off switch. In fact, it is almost insatiable. Our forebears didn't have to worry about engaging in dangerous excesses since they lived in surroundings of scarcity. But excess is a continual danger in our daring new world of plenty. Humanity has adapted to a world of hardship and scarcity, yet it is currently surrounded by plenty that is in opposition to our biology. We seem to be desert-adapted creatures that are abruptly thrust into lush gardens and are unsure of how to survive without the hardships that molded us. Jared Diamond, the constant expansion of what we deem appropriate in terms of convenience is one of the risks that arises from the struggle between our insatiable need for comfort and a world full of amenities. What was once comfortable becomes inadequate as soon as a new facility is introduced, since we quickly adjust to it. This process raises the bar for what we deem comfortable over time, creating a vicious loop whereby what is comfortable today becomes uncomfortable tomorrow. This phenomena operates subconsciously and is influenced by both personal experiences and Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious. We all share common inclinations and memories that have been gathered over generations, which are somewhat reflected in our demands and comfort perceptions. Therefore, our pursuit of comfort is influenced by the collective unconscious, which makes it disappear as it consumes us and pulls us away from resilience and the capacity to overcome obstacles. When it comes to physical comforts, the evolution of comfort is most obvious. One illustration is the usage of delivery platforms and automobiles, which enable us to get any good or service without ever leaving our homes. Prepared foods that are ready to use, including canned and frozen foods, which remove the need to cook and prepare meals from scratch. Furthermore, the accessibility of palliative medications for common ailments, like painkillers for a simple headache, promotes a quick and easy solution without addressing the underlying cause, which leads to a growing number of people leading nearly completely sedentary lives. According to Michael Easter, 27% of us engage in absolutely no physical activity. Life has devolved into a protracted cycle of going from bed to office chair to sofa to bed again. Since our bodies have evolved to need high levels of movement to stay healthy, this trend of physical comfort is one of the primary drivers of the growing obesity and chronic disease crisis. These conditions are brought on by an inactive lifestyle. According to Jung, the soul becomes stagnant when discomfort is absent. We suppress the inner energies that propel our development when we shun hardship and want comfort alone. We risk becoming more frail and estranged from our actual potential if we don't consciously confront and refuse to move away from the entirety of who we are. Overcoming obstacles is essential to preventing both mental and physical deterioration. Apart from the issue of comfort's growth, contemporary pleasures are having a devastating effect on our bodies and minds because pain follows pleasure like a shadow. Shadows, in Jung's view, are the aspects of ourselves that we reject. Our traits that are disapproved of and rejected do not go away. They build up in the shadowy areas of our personalities. Furthermore, they eventually adopt a life of their own, the life of the shadow, after staying hidden for an extended period of time. According to American psychiatrist Annie Lemke's book, Dopamine Nation, one of the most astounding findings in neuroscience over the past century is that pain and pleasure are processed in different parts of the brain and operate via different mechanisms. In other words, pleasure and pain function as a kind of equilibrium. Our brain is designed to maintain this equilibrium between pleasure and pain so that neither one dominates for an extended period of time. Our brain's self-regulating systems try to rebalance the scales by tilting them in the opposite direction whenever there is an extended or severe imbalance, either on the side of pleasure or pain. For instance, our brain responds to excessive pleasure by producing feelings of pain or discomfort, either emotional or physical, in an attempt to rebalance. The brain's homeostasis system, which controls our experiences to preserve equilibrium, is reflected in this process. Therefore, our system tries to compensate by shifting the scale towards the pain side the more we place weight on the pleasure side of the scale. This instinctive reaction aims to preserve a healthy balance and keeps pleasure from taking over for too long. Philosophers Friedrich Nietzsche and Carl Jung both provide insightful analyses of the connection between pain and pleasure. Nietzsche poses the question, what to elicit contemplation? Creating as much pleasure and as little misery for man as possible is the ultimate aim of science, right? However, What if the connection between pleasure and pain is so strong that the person who wants the most of one must also put up with the most of the other? Must one who aspires to the purest heavenly bliss be ready to endure periods of intense sorrow as well? Nietzsche is in favor of science. Jung supports this perspective by arguing that we suppress the inner energies that are vital to our growth when we avoid suffering in pursuit of a condition of ease. He makes the point that we risk becoming less whole and more vulnerable, as well as losing touch with our actual potential, if we don't consciously confront and resist. As a result, overcoming obstacles becomes essential to preventing psychological and physical deterioration and fostering resilience and self-awareness, all of which are essential for leading a satisfying life. We build tolerance when we often enjoy the same joys, and our brain becomes too sensitive to pain as a result of a process known as neuroadaptation. This indicates that while the pain we experience after experiencing pleasure increases and lasts longer, we require greater amounts of a chemical or stimulation to experience the same level of pleasure. Overindulging in unhealthy foods, pornography, video games, alcohol, drugs, or social media can tip the scales in favor of pleasure for so long and in such a drastic way that the balance between pleasure and pain eventually shifts to the side of pain. When this occurs, we are still motivated to consume our addiction in order to get momentary reprieve from the ongoing suffering, even though it no longer gives us pleasure. For instance, individuals who use painkillers continuously over an extended length of time may experience induced hyperalgesia, a condition in which the pain they were treating gets worse altogether. This is due to the fact that extended exposure tilts the brain's pleasure-pain balance to the pain side. This phenomena is explained by the central nervous system's reaction, which aims to make up for too much stimulation by creating a state in which pain is intensified. It is evident that this holds true for every enjoyable pastime or drug that we overindulge in. The paradox is that anhedonia, or the inability to experience pleasure of any kind, results from hedonism, or the pursuit of pleasure for its own sake. Paradoxically, pain results from the constant pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. We begin obsessively chasing our spending patterns in an attempt to feel normal and regain equilibrium when the internal balance shifts to the side of pain. The good news is that abstinence can reverse the chronic agony caused by excess. If you've made it this far, I'd like to ask you to like this video. It really helps to spread this message to more people. And now I want to know from you, how do you see the relationship between comfort, pleasure, and challenges in your life? Do you think we are becoming more fragile in the face of too much comfort? Let me know in the comments. Clinical studies demonstrate that the capacity to enjoy life's small pleasures, those that don't tilt the scales too much in favor of pleasure and prevent the rebound impact of pain, can be regained after 4 weeks of abstinence from the excessive stimuli that lead to addiction. Therefore, abstinence is the first step toward recovery. The brain's reward system can be redesigned during this time, restoring our capacity to enjoy little, healthful joys. We can use self-control strategies which include consciously and willingly putting obstacles between ourselves and the things that lead to obsessive intake, to aid us on our path to abstinence. Homer's Odyssey is a classic illustration of self-control. Odysseus told his crew to bind them to the ship's mast and put beeswax in their ears, since he knew that no man could withstand the alluring sirens that drove men to their deaths. He recognized that we can lose our ability to make free choices when our need for pleasure becomes overwhelming. Therefore, it's a good idea to keep these things far away, and, if at all feasible, to erect barriers that make them difficult to get to if we battle with alcohol, sweet meals, or other temptations. Setting timers and limiting use to particular times of the day or days of the week are 2 ways we might control our usage of digital medicines. Nietzsche also suggested self-control techniques as a useful strategy for reducing obsessive consumption of pleasurable things. He recommended avoiding situations that encourage us to seek instant gratification and gradually decreasing this tendency in his views on self-control. Furthermore, according to Nietzsche, Establishing a pattern that gives us control over the times and manner in which we indulge in pleasures aids in maintaining equilibrium and permits times when these urges don't disturb us. After we've succeeded in cutting back on excesses, we can enhance our lives by overcoming obstacles that cause some discomfort. Engaging in activities that involve good discomfort, like exercise, can provide a longer-lasting sense of pleasure and well-being, just as excessive pleasure can eventually result in pain. According to Viktor Frankl, the lack of purpose in life is more harmful than pain. We can find a level of fulfillment and joy that surpasses the pursuit of instant solace by confronting suffering and looking for purpose. We are better equipped to have genuine, deep moments of joy when we accept sorrow as a natural part of the human experience. Viktor Frankl. Seeking purpose. Exercise is a prime example of a beneficial activity that involves pain. Research indicates that exercise's short discomfort might create a favorable mood that can even lessen desires for unhealthy pleasures. Antonio Damasio asserts that our capacity for decision-making is greatly influenced by our emotions. Similar to the senses we experience during exercise, pain and discomfort play a crucial role in influencing how we see the world and behave, guiding us to steer clear of harmful activities and pursue those that enhance our well-being. Furthermore, difficult situations, like submersion in cold water, might set off hormonal processes that elevate our mood and fortify our emotional fortitude. Achieving difficult challenges involving mental, emotional, or physical stress, or setting lofty objectives and working hard every day to get them, can also momentarily tip the balances in favor of suffering in a way that makes us happier, healthier, and more capable of experiencing pleasure. We think in order to make a judgment or come to a decision. When we feel, it's to give our actions a personal significance. Carl Jung, Diogenes the Cynic, a philosopher from the 4th century BC, thought that pursuing discomfort consciously was necessary to lead a happy life. He was well known for his strange behaviors that went against social norms, like sleeping outside in a barrel and going barefoot in the winter. Diogenes believed that real freedom and independence could only be attained by leading a simple life free of luxury. This opinion is reflected in one of his most well-known quotes, "The most belongs to the one with the least." He maintained that man got stronger and more genuine when he broke free from the never-ending pursuit of comfort and pleasure. "I throw happiness away because it is a heavy burden," Diogenes added. He believed that ultimate fulfillment came from eschewing worldly pleasures and discovering depth in suffering, perseverance, and simplicity. Diogenes' philosophy demonstrates the close relationship between overcoming discomfort and reaching a level of strength and equilibrium, despite the fact that many people in his day thought he was insane. His perspective, which emphasizes that acceptance and the deliberate pursuit of challenges can lead to a more robust and fulfilling life, is still relevant today. The societal indoctrination that creates limiting beliefs leads to emotional scars and feeds shadows in our affluent world, where the unchecked pursuit of comfort and pleasure is crippling minds and bodies. It would be prudent to take the examples given here and purposefully make our life more difficult in order to break this pattern. By experiencing discomfort, we can get stronger, rediscover our true potential, and find a more genuine and enduring joy. The mind completes the development of anything new, but the instinct of a human need awakens it. The creative mind works on what it is passionate about. Like Nietzsche, Carl Jung emphasized that I am stronger when I don't die. He thought that in order to grow and overcome oneself, one must endure sorrow and suffering. According to Nietzsche, accepting discomfort and bravely overcoming hardship not only helps one develop their character, but also enables them to experience greater and more enduring joy. We must accept things before we can change them. Condemnation oppresses rather than liberates. Carl Jung. In his philosophy, the idea of accepting sorrow as a natural aspect of human existence is reinforced by the concept of amor fati, or loving one's own destiny with all of its difficulties and hardships. He composed Pain is a necessary part of life. Finding purpose in pain is a necessary part of survival. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a big step towards understanding how moderation and facing challenges can transform your life. Take advantage of this learning to reflect and act. Oh, and don't forget, if this content has helped you in any way, like the video. It makes all the difference to the channel. And how about sharing it with someone you think needs to hear this message? Together, we can spread ideas that really change lives.